Imagine you are building like the ultimate state-of-the-art digital smart house. You've got the foundation poured, the walls are up, and you've picked out the perfect furniture.
Right. Sounds great so far.
But to actually make it a smart house, you need sensors. Like you need a central nervous system that tells you when someone walks through the front door or, which rooms they spend the most time in.
Yeah, or whether they actually interact with the environment or just kind of stand in the hallway and leave.
Exactly. Without that system, you just have a very expensive, very quiet building. So, welcome to Fix the Funnel with GA Fix. This is episode number 15, and today's deep dive is a comprehensive masterclass on installing Google Analytics 4.
And verifying the installation plus auditing the whole setup using GAfix.ai.
Right. We are talking about the absolute bedrock of understanding user behavior here, because if you get your GA4 setup wrong, you aren't just missing data. You are, actively feeding your business false intelligence.
Completely false intelligence, yeah.
To get this right, we have to start by looking at the monumental shift in how we actually track users now. Because moving from the old Universal Analytics to GA4 isn't just like a simple software update.
Oh no, far from it. It is a complete architectural teardown and rebuild. Like if we look at the mechanics, Universal Analytics was fundamentally built on a session-based model.
Okay, let's unpack this. It acted a lot like a bouncer at a club, right?
Yeah, perfect analogy. It acted exactly like a bouncer. It noted when you walked in, started a stopwatch, and then noted when you left or went inactive. Everything you did in between was just loosely grouped into this bucket of time called a session.
Right, which was fine for a while, but...
But GA4 throws that entire concept out the window. It favors an event-based tracking model instead.
Meaning,
in this new architecture, the concept of a session is secondary. Instead, every single interaction is its own distinct data point. Like a page load is an event, a button click is an event.
a video play, a scroll down the page, a file download.
Exactly. They are all treated equally as standalone events, and each carries its own specific parameters.
Which solves a massive problem we used to have with cross-device tracking. Because under the old session model, if I visited a brand's website on my laptop and then later opened their mobile app, Universal Analytics struggled to connect those dots.
Because the session logic varied by platform, yeah.
Right. But an event is like a universal language. A purchase event on an iOS app looks structurally identical to a purchase event on a desktop browser. It completely standardizes the data.
It does. But, because the underlying data structure is entirely different, you can't just flip a switch and carry over your old setup. You have to lay entirely new track.
And laying that track requires a pretty serious assessment of your existing digital infrastructure, right? Like before you even touch a line of code.
Absolutely. You have to audit the environment first. And the very first thing to look for is whether a GA4 property is already quietly running in the background.
Oh, wait, because of the auto generation thing?
Yes, exactly. Towards the end of Universal Analytics' lifespan, Google automatically provisioned GA4 properties for a lot of accounts to kind of force the migration.
Wow, okay.
So if you dive in and start building a new property from scratch without checking, you risk creating duplicate tracking environments, which, as you can imagine, creates a massive headache for historical data continuity.
I've seen teams literally tie themselves in knots because half their marketing department was looking at the auto-generated property and the other half was looking at the new one they manually created.
It's chaos. You also have to check your permissions. I know it sounds basic, but you really need admin-level access at the Google account level.
Because Google's identity and access management is strict for a reason. You are dealing with proprietary business data.
Precisely. If you only have viewer or editor access, you physically cannot create a new property or generate the necessary tracking IDs. You'll just hit a brick wall.
So check permissions. Got it. What else?
Well, beyond the Google side, you have to intimately understand your website's architecture. The approach you take depends heavily on whether you are running a monolithic CMS like WordPress, or a hosted e-commerce platform like Shopify, or a custom-built React application.
Right, because a platform like Shopify has native integrations that basically handle the data layer for you.
Yeah, whereas a custom HTML build means you are entirely responsible for where and how the tracking scripts fire in the document object model.
Which brings up the great debate of the installation process, Google Tag Manager.
Oh, the GTM debate, yes.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people managing a simple one-page Wix or WordPress site who view Google Tag Manager as this overly complex middleman. They just want the raw tracking code to paste into their header.
Right, they just want to get it done.
Yeah. So if a site is fundamentally simple and doesn't change often, is setting up a container system like GTM actually providing value, or is it just technical bloat?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it might feel like bloat on day one, but the reality of managing any digital property is that complexity inevitably scales. You have to think of Google Tag Manager as a sandbox.
A sandbox, okay.
Right, because when you hard code tracking scripts directly into your website's source code, you are tightly coupling your marketing operations with your core engineering infrastructure.
Oh, so every time marketing wants to do something.
Every single time the marketing team wants to add a new Facebook pixel, track a new promotional pop-up, or implement a LinkedIn Insight tag, they have to open a ticket.
Disrupt the development sprint.
Exactly, and wait for code to be pushed to production. But by installing that single GTM container snippet once, you abstract the tracking away from the site's code.
So you never have to touch your website's actual source files again to add or modify tracking?
Never. It is an incredible bottleneck remover.
Going back to that smart house analogy, if you hardwire a specific lamp directly into the house's electrical grid, it works, but it's permanent. Using GTM is like installing a heavy-duty power strip.
Yes, that is exactly it.
You wire the strip into the wall once, and from then on, marketing can plug whatever lamps, TVs, or tracking pixels they want into that strip without calling the electrician.
And if one of those third-party tags is fundamentally broken, it usually just fails silently inside the container rather than taking down your entire website's rendering process.
Which is huge. That risk mitigation is probably why the container approach is heavily favored. But whether you use GTM or not, you still need a destination for the data, right?
You do. You have to forge the actual GA4 property. This is where you define the boundaries of what you are measuring.
So when you log into the analytics interface and create a new property, you aren't just like giving it a name,
No, you are setting foundational configurations, things like your reporting time zone and currency.
which are absolutely vital if you are running a global e-commerce operation. I mean, if your ad platforms are optimizing on Pacific time, but your GA4 property is strictly reporting in Eastern time.
Your daily conversion reports will be permanently misaligned by 3 hours.
Yeah, you'll never be able to reconcile your return on ad spend correctly.
Exactly. And once those basic business parameters are set, you have to configure the data streams. A property in GA4 is essentially a bucket, and data streams are the hoses feeding into that bucket.
So you can have an iOS stream, an Android stream, and a web stream all flowing into one central property.
Yep. For a standard website, you just add a web data stream pointed at your domain URL, and the system generates your measurement ID.
The GID, here's where it gets really interesting. Because it's formatted as G- and then a string of characters. This is basically your unique business tax ID for the Google ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it. It is the cryptographic key that tells the tracking script exactly which server to route your website's behavioral data to.
But there is a specific feature within that web data stream setup that represents a massive leap forward from the old days of analytics, right? Enhanced measurement.
Oh, enhanced measurement is incredible. It fundamentally changes the baseline of what you know about your users on day one.
Because historically, getting a simple page view was easy.
Easy. But the moment you wanted to know if a user actually scrolled down the page, or if they clicked a link that took them off your domain, or watched an embedded YouTube video, you were in for hours of custom JavaScript work.
It was a nightmare. You had to manually configure triggers for every single interaction.
You'd have to write custom event listeners to calculate the browser viewport height just to fire a scroll depth trigger. And it was highly prone to breaking every time a browser updated its security protocols.
Wow. So does enhanced measurement mean I don't have to manually code every time a user scrolls down my page?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes, that is exactly what it means. Google recognized that virtually every business on Earth cares about these specific micro behaviors, so they built the logic directly into the baseline tracking snippet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When enhanced measurement is toggled on, the GA4 script automatically injects listeners into the browser to capture those common interactions.
So it just watches for the user reaching the 90% scroll mark.
Exactly. It listens for clicks on outbound links. It listens to form interactions and site searches. It reduces the technical barrier to entry so drastically that you immediately get a multi-dimensional view of the user journey without writing a single line of custom code.
That is amazing. So what does this all mean for the installation? We have the property configured, enhanced measurement is active, and we have our GID. Now we hit the critical moment, surgically attaching this configuration to the website.
Right. the crossroads.
We mentioned the two distinct paths earlier, GTM versus manual coding with gtag.js. If a team decides to take the recommended path with GTM, the mechanics are surprisingly straightforward, right? Because you aren't dealing with code.
Right, you are dealing with a user interface. Inside Tag Manager, you simply create a new tag and select the Google Analytics GA4 configuration tag type.
And the only primary parameter it requires is that measurement ID. You just paste in the GID to establish the connection.
Yep. Then you have to define the trigger, which is the when. By selecting the built-in all pages trigger, you are telling the container to fire this configuration tag the moment the document object model begins to load on every single page of your site.
You hit publish, the container updates, and the tracking is live.
Simple as that.
And crucially, because GTM loads its scripts asynchronously, it doesn't block the rest of your website's content from loading. Like, the user gets to see your home page immediately, even if the analytics script takes an extra few milliseconds to fire.
Exactly. But what about the manual route?
Right. For the purists who bypass GTM, you have to take the raw gtag.js snippet from the GA4 interface and paste it directly into the HTML of the website.
And if you take that route, placement is absolutely critical. The script must go into the head section of the document as high up as possible.
Why does it have to be so high up?
Execution order.
Mm-hmm.
Browsers read HTML documents from top to bottom. If you place the tracking script at the very bottom of the body tag, and a user clicks a link to your site but hits the back button before the page fully loads.
Oh, the script might never execute.
Exactly. You will have paid for a click on an ad platform, but GA4 will show zero record of the visit.
Yeah.
Placing it in the head ensures the connection is established before the heavy visual elements of the page even begin to render.
But wait, if I manually paste the gtag.js code, how easily can I mess up my entire website's functionality if I put it in the wrong spot?
This raises a really important question.
Yeah.
Because editing the head section is like performing open heart surgery on your website.
It's where your site loads critical CSS styling and operational instructions.
Right. So if your hand slips and you accidentally delete a closing bracket, or you paste the snippet in the middle of another critical script, you can trigger a fatal JavaScript error.
Which just leaves your user staring at a blank white screen.
Exactly. And even if you don't break the site visually, there's an insidious danger with manual installation. Duplicate tags.
Oh boy. What actually happens to the data pipeline if a developer accidentally leaves an old manual snippet in the header, and then later the marketing team fires a second GA4 configuration tag through GTM?
The data corruption is instantaneous, and it is severe. If you fire the exact same configuration tag twice on a page load, Google servers receive two identical event payloads at the exact same millisecond.
So first, your page view metrics will immediately double, making it look like your traffic spiked artificially.
Yes, but the real damage is to your behavioral metrics.
Right, because of how bounce rate and engagement are calculated.
Precisely.
Yep.
If a user lands on a page and two page view events fire instantly, the system registers the first event as the arrival and the second event as an interaction.
Oh, wow. So the system thinks, wow, this user loaded a page and then immediately took another action. They must be highly engaged.
Yes. Your bounce rate will incorrectly plummet to near zero, and your average engagement time will skew wildly.
So you will look at your dashboard, think your new marketing campaign is the most successful in history, and make massive budget allocation decisions based on a complete illusion.
Which is an absolute nightmare scenario for a data-driven business. You are flying blind, but your instruments are telling you you're perfectly on course.
Which makes the verification phase non-negotiable. Like, you've deployed the code, whether through GTM or manually, but you cannot simply assume the pipeline is functioning.
No, you have to stress test the signal.
This step is basically like plugging in a TV, stepping back, and actually pressing the power button on the remote to make sure the screen lights up before you invite people over for the big game.
I love that analogy. And the ecosystem gives us a multi-layered diagnostic toolkit for this, starting with the Google Tag Assistant.
Okay, walk me through that.
The Tag Assistant is arguably your most vital diagnostic instrument. When you enter preview mode directly from GTM, it spins up a diagnostic overlay that connects your browser session to the Tag Manager interface.
So it shows you the exact sequence of events happening in the browser.
Exactly. It tells you which tags fired, which tags were blocked, and the exact payload of data they attempted to send. It is looking at the client-side execution. Basically, did the browser successfully process the script?
But the browser attempting to send the data doesn't necessarily mean the Google servers actually received it correctly.
Right, and that's where GA4's debug view comes in. You activate the debug parameter, usually by using the tag assistant, and then you watch the admin panel inside GA4 itself.
So Debug View lets you watch the raw event packets arrive at Google's server in real time. If you click a button on your site, you should see the corresponding custom event populate in the Debug View timeline a few seconds later.
Exactly. It verifies the network connection is intact, and then you have the real-time reports.
Which is the presentation layer, right? It shows you how the process data will actually look in your general dashboards.
Yeah, it aggregates active users, geographic locations, and top events over the last 30 minutes. It's excellent for a quick pulse check to ensure broad stroke traffic is flowing.
And for the highly technical, there is always the manual source code check, hitting Control U, viewing the raw HTML, and searching for your GID to ensure the string physically exists in the document architecture.
Always a solid backup.
But I often see teams get confused when these tools seem to disagree. Like, a marketing manager might load their homepage, check the real-time report, and not see their own active session on the map.
And panic sets in, and they assume the tracking is broken.
Right. But between Debug View, real-time reports, and the tag assistant, which one is the absolute foolproof source of truth if they seem to give conflicting information?
You have to trust the granular diagnostics. The Google Tag Assistant and Debug View are your absolute sources of truth for configuration accuracy.
Because real-time reports can be heavily subjected to batching delays, right? Or IP filters might be actively excluding their office network from the analytics view.
Exactly. Real-time reporting is a visualization tool built for broad monitoring, not forensic debugging. If the Tag Assistant confirms the script executed and Debug View confirms the server digested the parameters correctly, your data pipeline is structurally sound.
But here is the terrifying reality of digital infrastructure. A pipeline that is structurally sound today can easily rupture tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. Websites are highly dynamic.
Yeah, a developer updates the core CMS architecture, or a content manager installs a new social sharing plugin, or the marketing team completely revamps the checkout flow.
And any of these routine updates can subtly alter the DOM elements that your tracking scripts rely on. If your conversion tag is tied to a specific button ID and a developer accidentally renames that ID during a site refresh,
Your tag silently stops firing, you won't get an error message, the data just flatlines.
this is the critical vulnerability in modern analytics. We rely heavily on data to drive strategy, but the mechanism collecting that data is inherently fragile.
So manual verification is incredibly effective on launch day, but nobody has the bandwidth to manually trigger Tag Assistant, run through a mock purchase, and monitor Debug View every single morning before they drink their coffee.
Which is exactly why the industry is moving aggressively toward automated auditing solutions like GA4.ai.
Using GA4.ai sounds like having a digital mechanic riding shotgun with you, constantly running diagnostics on the engine while you drive so you never break down on the highway.
It really does. It takes the concept of continuous integration, something software engineers have used for years to automatically test code before it goes live, and applies it directly to marketing technology.
So what's the core value proposition there?
It centers on persistent validation. Its automated setup validation can instantly scan an entire GA4 property configuration and flag architectural errors, like missing tags, incorrect measurement IDs, or data streams that have silently disconnected.
Wow, okay. But is this tool strictly for technical developers, or can someone who gets a headache looking at spreadsheets use it to generate a report?
That's the best part. It requires absolutely no coding skills. It solves a massive communication gap between the technical and non-technical teams.
Because a lot of marketing professionals look at raw network payload errors and their eyes just glaze over. It's outside their domain expertise.
Exactly. GA4.ai translates those complex technical failures into actionable business alerts.
No.
It doesn't just say JavaScript execution failed on line 42.
Right.
It says your primary checkout conversion tag has stopped firing, which means your current ad campaigns are unable to optimize for purchases. It bridges the gap.
That translation layer is crucial, but I imagine the ongoing monitoring is the real lifesaver.
Oh, absolutely. Scheduling these automated audits means you are protecting the integrity of your historical data. If a new holiday marketing campaign requires a massive site overhaul in 6 months, you don't have to wait for the monthly reporting cycle to realize the checkout tracking broke on day one.
You get an immediate alert the moment the data pipeline is severed. It ensures that the insights you rely on for budget forecasting remain uncorrupted month after month.
It really takes the anxiety out of managing complex infrastructure.
It does. Setting up Google Analytics 4 with precision, meticulously verifying the data flow through Debug View and Tag Assistant, and implementing an automated audit layer, whether manually scheduled or via GA4.ai, is the absolute foundation of digital strategy.
Without a doubt.
You are taking raw, chaotic web traffic and formatting it into a highly structured narrative about human behavior. You are aligning every micro interaction with tangible business goals. But getting the base tag to fire is literally just the beginning of the journey.
It really is merely turning the lights on in the smart house.
Yeah.
The platform provides incredible depth through enhanced measurement, but it has no inherent knowledge of your business model.
Right, you have to tell the system what matters.
Exactly. You have to actively go into the platform, analyze those default events, and architect custom events that actually reflect your unique conversion funnel.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating dynamic to consider. Like, GA4's event-based model is so radically granular.
It is. It can measure the exact millisecond a user pauses a video, the precise pixel depth they scrolled, the moment they hovered over a specific image.
We are collecting a massive, unprecedented wave of behavioral data. So how might this fundamentally change how we define a successful website visit in the near future?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Could a visit where a user never clicks a single button, never submits a form, but scrolls slowly, reads meticulously, and spends 12 minutes deeply absorbing your core brand message, soon be considered more valuable to a retargeting algorithm than a user who executes a quick, panicked click and buy and immediately requests a refund?
When we have the power to measure every single nuance of human attention, what does engagement actually mean anymore?
It completely disrupts the traditional funnel logic.
It does. We are moving away from treating a website like a vending machine where only the final transaction matters.
And moving toward understanding digital environments as immersive experiences where every second of attention has a quantifiable value.
Exactly. It changes everything.
It really does. So to everyone listening, go dive into your property settings, double check your data streams, run those Tag Assistant diagnostics, and make sure your foundation is rock solid. The data is trying to tell you an incredible story. You just have to make sure you are capturing it correctly. Until next time, keep fixing the funnel.